And without further ado, folks, we have a gentleman here who is running for president. Ryan Binkley is on the line, running for the Republican nomination to be the next president of the United States. Ryan, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on the program. And so here's how I want to kind of set up before you start telling folks your vision for the country and why you're running. You are right on the threshold of the amount, I believe, of individual donors, and there are a few other qualifications to get in on the first Republican debate. What are you trying to get over the hump with here? What do folks need to do?
Right. So we need 40,000 donors, I think, from a week from today. And we need to keep doing what we're doing. We've been, it's amazing. We had 20,000 donors just last week. So we've had a lot of momentum shifts happen. It took us 2 months to get 2,000, and so it's been climbing fast. So we've been averaging about 2,500, 3,000 a day. So if we keep doing that, we should be there on the donor perspective. And then they need 1% in polling. And so we got there in one poll. I think some polls are coming out this week, and we're praying we hit the numbers and see everybody there at the first debate.
So, folks, if you like what you're about to hear, if you like the vision Ryan lays out, you need to go to, Binkley2024.com and donate. You can do just $1 too to just say, hey, I want to see this guy on the debate stage.
That's correct. It truly is a unique vision for our country, and I appreciate every bit of help we can get.
But here's my first question I usually start with. We had a long wind up here. And I asked this of mayoral candidates, city council, United States Senate, Congress, and even the presidency. Ryan, why do this to yourself?
It is worth it for the next generation. I've got 5 kids, ages 13 to 23, and, our country is so broken economically, culturally. We've never been more divided than we are right now in my lifetime, and that has a consequence. Legislation that doesn't work for the average American. Right now, economically, the average household is spending $700 more a month than they were 2 years ago, just in expenses. And so we've got a government that's out of hand, that doesn't know how to legislate, doesn't know how to lead financially. And I really see this. Do you remember that book, The Tipping Point, by Malcolm Gladwell years ago?
Sure.
I feel like our country is getting up close to a tipping point financially. And with the debt we have and what's coming, we're probably the next 8 years, we're going to be $50 trillion in debt. And that would be about 14% of our budget being paid on interest payments that we don't have. And we have to roll printing presses to make these payments. And so we're about to, hit an inflection point where we start going expansionary inflation all the more, or the banks keep doing what they're doing. And that's going to put the central banks doing what they're doing by raising interest rates. And that's going to put pressure on small regional banks. That's my background as a CEO in investment banking. And I see it. I see trouble ahead. So I'm telling America, listen, we're going to have to do for the first time in 30 years, let's make some hard decisions, but smart decisions for the next generation. Because if we don't, we're probably going to be known as the generation, I'm 55, 40 years, 50 years from now, we'll be known as the generation that prospered so much. I mean, think of all the money we've had in the last 2 decades in our country, but we couldn't even balance the budget. And I think we'll be known as the generation that sacrificed the least. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Well, and I fully agree with you on this debt that's staring us in the face. I think not only is it a moral abomination, like to throw this amount of debt and obligations on people not even born yet. It just seems a bit irresponsible on a moral level. But it's now the argument I've been making is, okay, there have been conservatives and libertarians like myself that have long been hawks when it comes to the national debt. But it's now for the average person, and a big part of your campaign is these bipartisan solutions. This is just a practical matter, right?
It is. It's no longer a Republican issue. I mean, Republicans used to be fiscal conservatives. Oh, my goodness. We have done just as much damage as anybody else in the last 20 years. President Trump, I love many things he did, and I want to make sure I'm clear on that. He did some good things. But, being a fiscal conservative was not one of them. I mean, we went $7.5 trillion in debt underneath his leadership. And granted, a lot of that was due to COVID, but it happened before COVID as well. So it's just not part of his platform. And so we've got to get back to this because this is hitting us all. I mean, this is hitting everybody. And so the only way to do it is to put together a balanced budget. We just launched a 7-year economic rescue plan that I'm saying this rescues us from inflation and rescues the U.S. dollar. We don't talk about this much because a lot of average voters don't know the role of the dollar and the world's reserve currency. But if that loses its foothold and it's cracking now, that could hurt us even more in the next 5 and 10 years. And then, of course, rescue Social Security. We have some things in place that are set to be broken. As I said earlier, I'm 55, and in 10 years, when I can take Social Security, there's going to be about 78 cents on the dollar available to me and everybody else, Mike. So we've got to fix it.
Well, you're right over the target with me. I've been saying that the issue of what is money and who controls it is going to come back with, like it was William Jennings Bryan in the late 1800s. Like, I think that issue is becoming a huge political one right around the horizon. And you're right about world reserve status. I don't think Americans understand the shot in the arm that is and has been for a long time. Where do you see this going in terms of, you have things like developing like Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency services, and then at the same time you're seeing the BRICS nations and many others beyond the usual BRICS nations talk about an alternative to the U.S. dollar. I mean, are we still in a position where if we make the right choices, we won't be unseated?
Well, I think that's part of the solution. We have to get back to the basics. So let's think of why cryptocurrency is taking off. I mean, the reason it's taking off is because they no longer believe, everybody that's a crypto fan that I know and talk to, they no longer believe that the U.S. government is a good steward of the U.S. dollar.
Right.
So they see us printing money just like crazy. So let's just go back, 100 years ago. A U.S. gold coin, that would buy a men's suit, 100 years ago, and it's worth, $20, whatever it was, something like that. That 1 ounce coin would still buy a suit today, but it's $1,900. So we have had this inflationary concept. Our dollar is a fiat currency. It's like monopoly money. We keep printing so much of it that it becomes worthless over time. So we've got to get back to just good stewardship. If we do, the demand for crypto would not be near as high as it is today. And so people want to trust. Back 30 years ago, I'm a finance major and as well as MBA, but portfolio theory 30 years ago, U.S. Treasuries used to be a part of portfolio theory. But we've had 0% interest rates in Treasuries for 20 years, and so now all our banks they're facing so much pressure because their assets are held with all these Treasuries. So as the Fed raises the rates, you're going to start seeing more collapsing in banks the way we saw earlier this year, just pressure on them. And so the country's in trouble because if we keep doing inflation, if we keep spending what we're going to do, the Fed, they'll keep raising rates. And when they do, we could enter some very difficult moments because when that happens, businesses don't grow. They don't buy businesses. People can't buy farm equipment. They can't buy cars, anything with interest payments. And so we could enter in a stagflation moment, and I want to rescue us from that.
Amen. Again, folks, we're talking to Ryan Binkley. He's a candidate for president of the United States, looking to make the Republican debate stage. Needs those 40,000 unique donors from at least 20 different states. I believe that's right. And so if you like what you're hearing so far, just go to Binkley2024.com and donate. Even $1 works, but of course you can always donate more, folks. And Ryan, one thing I've noticed is, and especially as a young guy, and we talk about it often on the shows, I'll be 35 in December, and I am definitely of that older millennial generation that does not have trust in our major institutions. I can be hypercritical of them, in fact,
Sure.
But I think I'm being fair in that you look across the board, there is a complete lack of trust. I think the only thing above water are small businesses and the military, and not say the Pentagon bureaucracy, but I think folks are thinking of the family members and friends in uniform. How do we make sure we actually come together as a country? Because, I mean, for a while there, it was a Twitter hashtag of national divorce. Is the way we unite America, again, practical solutions, but also is there a, say, God element, a God thing to this?
I think it's both. It's going to take God to do it. So I'm a pastor also of a church. We've been doing, really bivocational both, ministry and business. It's just been a part of my life since my wife and I got married. And I think we need God in our country. I think everybody knows that. Everybody I've talked to is like, yes, we need the Lord. But at the end of the day, too, we've got to start making smart decisions that impact everybody. So I have a message to unify our country. But a lot of people ask me, Lord, Ryan, how are you going to do that? Biden said he was going to do that, but he's not giving us one thing to unify on. And I would be the same kind of leader if I didn't give us something to say, hey, listen, what can we focus on together? So I've picked a couple areas. The budget's one. We talked about that a little bit. And we can go into detail later on that, maybe at another time. But healthcare is another one that's hitting Democrats and Republicans. We have 40% higher inflation in healthcare. And I actually want to demonopolize healthcare, insurance agencies. I'm going to take a business person's approach to healthcare. We have big pharma. We have monopolies in big pharma, the pharmaceutical drugs. We get patent extensions 15, 20 years longer than Europe. And then we wonder why our drugs are so expensive. We're actually subsidizing the world in pharmaceutical drugs. We can't keep doing this. But this is not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an American issue. So I'm picking some things like that, as well as, I want to do job training for the poor. The Republicans lost 46 of the top 50 cities in America by population last election. I mean, we do not have a message for urban America. So one thing I want to do to help unify our country is, listen, whether you're Republican or Democrat, can we all agree that the poor need better job training and we can get back to vocational trades again? Not everybody's going to go to college, but we can teach young people, hey, you could be an electrician, a plumber, make 60, 80 grand a year. You could be a craftsman. There's some things that we can get people involved in, and I really have a heart for that, because it's time to put America back to work again, but give them some passion moment where they can love what they do and make a living at it.
Well, I love what I'm hearing, Ryan, and you're bringing up, let me put it this way. We've gotten used to saying on this show, post-persuasion America, where it seems like everybody's in their camp and the politicians usually just stoking their base, not trying to convince anybody of anything. You're the first person in a while, at least on a federal sense, that has sat down and started talking issues. You got me wanting to ask about the dual mandate of the Fed and how can we remove more supply-side restrictions from, say, the healthcare market. One that I know you also just came out with a plan, love to hear a few details, is on immigration. How can we make the solution to immigration? I think it's a problem that's been staring us in the face for 30 years. What sort of ways can that be done that are actually bring people together?
Well, first of all, we have to recognize this. There is no way a Republican solve this issue by themselves. The minority party, unless we've got 2/3 of the House and the Senate, there's no way it's going to happen. So, in which we haven't ever had in my lifetime, I don't think. So we've got to lead this in a bipartisan fashion. You've got very passionate and strong feelings from Americans on both sides of this issue. One, Democrats kind of want a plan for immigrants. They want some sort of pathway to citizenship. If you talk to them, that's what they want. Republicans, they want a secure border. I'm saying, listen, there's some combination in here that we can get and solve this problem, because in the meantime, while we argue, 300 people are dying a day of fentanyl that's coming in through the southern border, and we're not doing anything about it. I've been telling Iowans, I'm like, how many people have to die a day before we decide to get together and talk? Is it 500? Is it 1,000? Just tell me the number, and then we'll actually have a conversation together. So it's way past the number. And so we've got to stop it. And I'm recommending the Dignity Act. This is actually Republican-led. Maria Salazar, Republican from Florida, put together this act that actually secures the border with, I would say this, wall, barrier, towers, technology, and people. About a $30 billion project that's actually has a funding mechanism, which Trump didn't have. That's one tough thing he had. He had a good idea, but he didn't have any money.
Right.
And so this actually has a mechanism of money, but it's paid for by penalties, fines, and taxes from the immigrants. They're going to be able to come out of the shadows and actually be able to work here legally. There's 20 million people here. A lot of my counterparts are, Ryan, I'm going to roll the military up on the border and we're going to kick everybody out. I'm like, that is just trying to, thread red meat to the Republican Party. That's not a real solution, because it's short term. I mean, as soon as a Democrat comes in there, that'll be done in a day. So I want to have a 50-year solution to this, and it's time. And I really support that. So we're calling our act the Security and Dignity Act. It's very similar to the Dignity Act of Ms. Salazar, Congresswoman Salazar. And it's about securing the border and then worker registration. It ends sanctuary cities. It ends catch and release. It requires E-Verify for every business. So you can't hide. There's nowhere to hide. And so it allows, though, dignity for people that have been here the longest. Some people came over here when they were 2 and 3 years old, 30 years ago. I've got a friend of mine who came over here when he was 5, seeking asylum. He's 35 now. His parents got citizenship, but he got married when he was 19, and he's still not a citizen. And so it's like a broken system. It's just crazy. And we've got to put some effort to it. And when we do, I pastor a multicultural church. I'm telling the Republican Party, they will vote for us if we just show we care. Don't be afraid of their vote. Most immigrants that are here legally, and some that have come across the board that own businesses now, they're pro-life, they're pro-family, they're pro-work. They'll vote Republican if we just show we care.
Well, again, folks, we've been talking to Ryan Binkley. And Ryan, I just have to say, again, I appreciate you actually talking policy. I appreciate your pragmatic and positive approach. And if folks like what they're hearing, how can they donate to your campaign so they can see you on the first Republican debate stage?
Well, a couple ways. First of all, if a polling company calls you, just go ahead and say right. That's important too.
There you go.
And then go to Binkley2024.com, hit donate on there. Any amount will do, and that'll help us so much. And share the word. This is a different message. I am coming across as a different candidate, and I'm not politics as usual at all. And so if you want to see something different, if you want to see our country come together, then share it with some friends. Text a few friends as well. This is how our moment is going to happen. I'm not a billionaire, and I'm not a lifelong politician, so we've got to get this name out, grassroots, and this message out that way.
Well, I appreciate your time today, sir, and best of luck. Honestly, after doing my research on you last night and talking to you today, I would love to see you on that debate stage. So best of luck.
Thank you so much.